Hi, today we're going to be talking about how to do a hard drive swap on a Korg D3200. It's a pretty painless process, but it is a few steps that you have to go through. I just want to make it clear as far as what you have to do this. We will be working with the manual within the video itself. So I'll be referring to some page numbers. I printed mine off in a 3-ring binder to make it easier to work with. I would suggest you have something available like that too as a backup. But first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how to back up between the Korg to your PC. So that's one step. We're going to be then talking about how to restore a song from the PC back to the Korg. That's another step. Actually, you'll be doing that at the very end, but I'm going to recommend you do that as a test early on in case you have some problems with that process. You can take care of that before you actually do the hard drive swap. We'll be creating a system recovery CD, and we'll be burning a CD to the CD burner, which is kind of handy. I've made several copies to keep around just in case. Then we'll be moving on to actually doing the actual hard drive swap, open the machine up, swap out the drives. And then finally, what we'll be talking about is how to do the system recovery and put the system back onto the hard drive so that it repartitions the hard drive. And one final step, then I'm going to add how to increase the size of your PC USB partition on the Korg from 4 gigabytes to 8 gigabytes. And that gives you a little bit more space to operate when you're transferring those files. So let's get started. Okay, to get started, we're going to look at how to do a backup. I've already done the disk swap at this point, so I won't have all the songs on it that I had before, but it's a pretty simple procedure. We start on page 84 of the Korg manual if you want to follow along in your book there. The manual is kind of hard to follow, so it might be better off just to, I'm going to hit the highlights and try to make it a little clearer, because in the manual they tend to refer you to other parts of the manual, which gets confusing. But to start on doing a song backup, there's basically 2 ways to do it, and I'm going to show you as we go along. But first thing you have to do is select the song you want. I don't want this particular song, so starting from the song menu, where it has a list of them, I want to do this second song as a backup. And we're going to load that. Okay, so now the second song is now loaded as the active song that we're going to be working with. So the main keys are going to be your mouse controller and your system MIDI key and your song key for this step. So first thing to do is you want to come up, hit the MIDI key, and that'll pull up your selection for the MIDI system selections. We want to do a backup, but let's look at the file system first. So right now I've got it's a 320 gig hard drive in here now, but before it was just a little 40 gig drive. What's important here is this PC USB portion, and so that's part of the drive in the Korg that allows you to talk to the computer. So that's the only space you have that'll actually be interfacing with your computer. When you load everything up initially, I believe this defaults to 4 gigabytes, and you have a choice of 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes. So it's not a lot of space, and so if you're trying to do your entire drive and you've got it filled up, as I was trying to do, I realized I couldn't do all my backups at the same time. I had to do, a group of songs at the same time. I mean, I could put 10 songs on there at a time if I wanted to, and that worked out fine, but just keep that in mind. So you want to go over to the backup tab. So here you've got the choice of one song, all your data, or the user data. The manual goes into more detail what that means, but we're just going to do one song. We've only got the one drive, and it's been selected already, and that's active. And it's going to copy over to the PC USB drive, and we want to execute that. It's going to ask us if we're sure. We say yes. And so this takes about a minute per 100 megabytes to get through here. So we'll fast forward through this section. Okay, our backup is completed. So that took several minutes, obviously. Click OK. All right. Now, what we do now is this will be on our file for the PC USB drive. And we can check that by clicking on PC File. We're just going to look at the backup folder here. Click on Backup, click up Open, and you can see we've got a song Catch on there. That's what we're going to back up. Okay, now let's go ahead and we'll go to USB mode. There's another song on there. We're actually going to delete that to show how the restore process works, but for now, we go to USB, and what that's going to do now, that's going to talk to our computer. So on the PC here, I've already got a directory created for the backup. It's Korg D3200 backup demo, and that's going to be where we're going to pull that file over. So I'm going to open up File Explorer to get my other Korg file open, and this is the Korg. This is the 8 gigabytes that I've got on my PC USB drive from the Korg. So when we open that up, you see we have a Korg directory. Again, this is talking to the Korg itself, and there's 3 directories that match up the same things that are in the Korg itself. So we go to backup, and here's our song we wanted, was the song that started with catch. And so I'm going to take that and I'm going to pull it over here and let that copy over. And remember, this is copying over a USB 2 line, so it's going to be a little slower if you have some really big files. Okay, so that's copied over. So now that that's done, we don't need these files over here. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. And that clears out the PC USB portion of the Korg, since we've already got this file backed up here. So we're clear on that. So I'm going to close this out. Okay, now let's go back down to our Korg. All right, so on the Korg then, we can hit exit, and it disconnects from the PC. Okay, so that file has now been successfully backed up to a PC. If we go back to the backup directory on that PC USB drive, we'll see there's nothing on there because we deleted it off when we were on the laptop. Okay, all right, so that's basically all there is to it on the, let's go back to song, in our song list. So that's basically how you do a backup to your PC. So you can do all your songs, maybe after you do your final mix, go ahead and back it up. And I actually have 2 locations that I back my stuff up to. So let's do the restore process now to show you how that works. That'll be something we have to do after we get the drive swapped out. So we want to restore either all the songs or some of the songs. That's what you'll have to decide. But let's go through the process of how that works. So right now we've only got 2 songs on here, and I want to put this 3rd song that's over on the PC that was backed up. So first things we got to do is just select a song just to keep something active in the system. I'm not sure why it insists on that, but and once that's loaded, we're not going to be dealing with Catch My Drift. We're going to just be going to the System MIDI button and hit that again. Okay, and now we want to restore. So we're going to come over to the Restore tab on the System MIDI button, and we need to select a file. Okay, so the file hasn't been selected yet. There's nothing in there to select on the PC drive. So we have to do the similar process that we did before to get the file onto the PC USB file. So we're going to go to USB mode again. And it's going to talk to the computer. All right, same process. Let's go back to the computer. So now we're going back to the computer, and the file I want to back up is this one, the 13121801 file. So we're going to go back to our File Explorer, and we're going to look up this Korg drive again on this PC, and here's the Korg. So we click that open, Korg, to backup. And I guess theoretically you could do it to any of those directories. Maybe, I'm not sure. So we're going to want to copy this file over because that's the one we want to restore. And we'll copy it over to our Korg PC USB drive. So that's been copied over. So we can exit out of this. So we're done with the PC for now. Let's go back to the Korg. Okay, so we're back on the Korg. We can go ahead and hit exit, and that'll disconnect it from the computer, as you just heard. Everything takes time on this machine, so be patient. So in the backup section, we should see our file that we just chose to back up. There it is, okay. So we can now go to the restore, and we have to select the file. Now, what we have to do, this is kind of weird, I don't understand why we have to do that, but we have to select all portions of the file, and I don't know why it doesn't default to that, but basically you're going to click on the file you want to restore, click open, and then we're going to select all. So that'll be the file itself, the effect data, the EQ library, mixer setup data, so all the different effects that you had, all the different settings you had, but we're going to select all. Maybe you don't want to select all, I don't know, but I think for general, most of us would want to select all, and we'll click OK, and we're going to execute. Are you sure? Sure. Why else would we be doing it? Okay, so everything takes time on this machine, and this is a small file, and I purposely chose that so it doesn't take so long. And click OK. All right, then we'll go back to our song list, and our new song, the bunch of numbers, should be back on there. And here it is, 131218. So this song is all set to go. And let's load it up. Let's see what it sounds like. I'm not sure if there's even what that song is, to be honest with you. So we're loading that. Stop. Anyway, so you can see we successfully backed up to the PC, and then on the flip side, we were able to restore from a PC as well. So that's critical in this process of replacing the hard drive in these machines. Okay, so I've copied everything over to the PC in my studio, and subsequently I copied everything from my studio PC to my network attached storage, so that everything should be backed up now in a couple of places. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to now access the next part, which is going to be do a system, I guess it's called a system drive, system restore drive, and in order to do that we're going to put a CD in. Okay, then we're going to come back to the system, and if you're not already on the disk utility tab, you want to be on that tab right there. There is a disk in there, and for some reason I'm not sure why it shows no disk, but I think at this point we just want to do a save system. Are you sure? You click yes. So everything on this machine is kind of slow as far as the computer type operations. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next step. So just a review, so far we've backed up everything to a PC that was on the hard drive. I've created a restore CD. Actually, I've created several copies of that, so we can put that to recreate the operating system on the new drive. And I think there's an operating system in the hardware in here as well that will get loaded on if you didn't have those drives. So next thing we're going to do is go ahead and open this thing up and physically swap out the hard drive. So opening it up is not a huge deal. There's a few steps you need to do. First is going to be to take out these pieces on the end. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on the front here. And let's try taking the ones in the back off first, and you'll see why when I get into it. But there's 1, 2, 3, okay? Okay, so that's the back. Needless to say, you want to unplug this before you start. So I don't think I need to say it, but I probably need to say it. 4 on the front. So you do want to be careful about this top flopping around. But I think, if I remember correctly, ooh, okay. So when you open this, don't do what I just did. So when you open this, do it real carefully and do it slow. As I start pulling this off, I already popped out one of the connections, which popped out pretty easily, so I don't think it's a problem. But just be careful as you're pulling this open, and be careful how you disconnect these. There we go. So there's 4 of them. Now, the one thing I discovered when I did this before was there's actually like it's not a hinge, well, I guess it's kind of like a hinge, but it'll actually hold itself in place there. You could take this off all the way, but I thought, if it just I think it was designed like that for servicing, so if it falls, you'll catch it on camera. So we'll see how that goes. Hard drive's over here, and so this is a 40 gigabytes. It's an old Barracuda 7200.7. I'm not sure, is it a 7200 RPM or something? I'm not really sure. It's from, I looked up the code, and it's from June of 2005. So it would be the original hard drive in here. And it hasn't been making noise or anything like that, but I just feel that it's probably time it's 2019 right now, so I think it's probably time to go ahead and pull this out and replace it. So hopefully this should go pretty simple, maybe. So these screws are a little bit different. Okay, let's look at the 3 different screws. So I just want to keep them in order. But these long ones are for the wood sides. These middle ones are going to be for securing the case together. And there's a little bit shorter with a little washer that's going to be used for the hard drive. So I just want to make sure again, it's easy to tell them apart, and you only have 4 for the hard drive. So I think I'll be able to figure that out. But you just want to keep them in order. Okay, we're pulling this out. And we want to be careful. I'm going to pull this. Yeah, by pulling it from the top, you put a funny angle on it. That's probably not a good idea. There we go. Okay, so it has a little ribbon cable on it, and I could have just disconnected that as well, but if I don't have to disconnect that, I just assume not to. Not that it's a huge deal, but it's just something else that could go wrong. So this is our drive. It's in a carrier cradle. What do you want? Oh, let's see, they're independent on each side. Okay, and here's my new drive. So this one is a 320 gigabyte. It actually is not super new either. It was made in, so this one was manufactured in November of 2009. So it's 4 years younger than the original drive, but this is a brand new drive, new old stocks. Certainly much bigger than the original. So I don't know if I have to use any slave settings or not. They do have a jumper on the first, but I don't think I need that. So it's a single drive, so I don't need to do anything with it. But a lot of you haven't had to deal with that. So I'm just going to carefully put this to one side, and we'll take it apart and put it back together. Okay. All right. So I'll actually save this old drive, and it'll be kind of a backup to my new drive. So it's kind of interesting if you build computers, and I bet a lot of you do. You'll kind of see a lot of similarities between a motherboard and what's inside these things. So it essentially is going to be some kind of computer in here, or logic board. I'm not sure what the best way to describe it, but it looks like a central processor here and maybe some memory over here. So not knowing a lot about the actual chips and everything, I'm just going to guess what some of these things are. And here's your power supply over here. That a lot of it is very similar to what your computers are going to be. And just be careful of your ribbon cable. If it comes out, you can put it back in, but okay. All right, so that is in there. All right, so basically that's it. So as you're closing it, again, you can use this hinge that's on here to hold things in place while you do it. So as you close it, you're just going to plug these back in carefully. There's actually a site several years old. I think it's called Eye Candy or something like that. And that guy's got excellent content. His videos are, the actual video of this, what he shows isn't the greatest, but he does some really nice tutorials on how to use these D3200s. And I'd highly recommend, if you have one, to at least visit his YouTube channel to kind of see what he's got available, because that guy's has dug very deep into these D3200s. So basically, at this point, we can kind of reverse what we did before. I don't guess it really matters if we do the front or the back first. I'm just going to do the front first because that's the closest one. All right. Okay, very good. So we got it all buttoned up, and I think the next step now is going to be, we're going to take this back over to the recording desk over there and hook it back up and start reloading the software in it. So that was putting the hard drive in. That's the easiest part of this whole thing. So swapping out a hard drive is not that big of a deal. Maybe just say a few things about the hard drive. It's an IDE drive, so they're a little older style. It's not like the modern SATA drives. So it's going to have that kind of connector on it. You might have one sitting around, but if you're going to replace it, try to find some new old stock and just get a good name brand like Western Digital. There's a few others. The Seagate is what was in there. I've had a few Seagates die on me over the years, so that might just be my personal experience with them. They might be wonderful drives, but the Western Digital have always been good. There's a few other good brands out there. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, so we got the machine hooked back up and everything, and I think we're ready to start doing the recover. Inserted the recovery drive. I hit pan, location 3, and on. So we'll see if this works. Oh, system recovery. Okay, so what I've got now is it should be reformatting the hard drive. This is going to take some time, so I'm going to let this run out until we finish up the recovery. Okay, guys, I realized I didn't hit the record button, so we're kind of a couple minutes into this thing. When I turn the system off and I actually turned the switch off in the back for the power and let it sit about a minute or so. When I came back on, I hit the button in the back, and then this time when I went to turn the system on, I hit the pan, loc 3, and the on button. Then it recognized the disk and everything properly, and now we're in the, it tested the hard drive, and now it's, I guess it's reformatting the hard drive. Looks like it's loading now. Okay, that's very good. So that took about 5 minutes, so that wasn't so bad. Let's see, so I was reading the directions as we were going through this. So it says at this point, system recovery completed. It tells me to click the OK button. Normally I'd be tempted to go ahead and take that CD out of there, but they say go ahead and restart it. And after it's finished starting up, remove the recovery CD from the drive. Okay, so we'll just, we'll follow directions. Sometimes that works. So it's going to reboot. Yay, that looks good. Okay, we're on song 1 again. All right, well, let's look at the disk here. So we'll go to the system button, and we'll kind of see what we got going on here. Let's go to the disk utility, and it shows a 293 gigabyte hard drive, which is good. So it's a 320, but I guess with the whatever overhead they have on these things. What I would like to do is currently the PC drive is at 4 gigabytes. I'd like to take that up to 8. Okay, so as we go down to our disk utility, we can see we've got our main drive is recognized at 298 gigabytes. And then the drive that's going to be recorded on is partitioned at 293 gigabytes, but our PC USB drive is at 4 gigabytes. Okay, and I want to go ahead and take that up to 8. Now, when you do this, keep in mind that this is like the only time you want to do this because it'll erase whatever's on your drive in this A section. So if you're going to increase this size is what we want to do. So when it comes up, it says 2 for whatever reason, but we're going to make that 8. So that's as big as it'll go. And apparently this does not work on Windows 98. So if you're using an old machine or something, this is something that you just need to be aware of. Okay, it says caution, data will be erased. Just be aware of that so you know what's going on. There we go. So let's say we didn't tell you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go. Are you sure? So yes. And so this will give us a little more flexibility, especially since the drive is so big. Okay, partition complete. Okay, so now we've got PC USB drive is at 8 gigabytes, and our main drive for recording purposes is at 289 gigabytes. We should be in good shape here. So that, as we saw when we were copying down for recovery copies of files, that we only needed 4 gigabytes, and that got quite a few songs on there. And then depending on the size of your songs and everything, how many tracks, those are going to be much bigger. So I think we're all set on this. The next step now will be to start copying some of those files back. So as you can see, it was a pretty stepwise process we went through to get that hard drive swap. So we backed up our songs to the PC. We learned how to restore the songs back to the Korg from the PC. We created a recovery disk, CD disk, and we did the hard drive swap. And then ultimately we restored the system back to the hard drive and partitioned the hard drive. And then we increased the size of the PC USB partition on the Korg. So a few steps. Some of it can be time consuming, but if you take your time and everything, it's a pretty painless process. So just to pay attention to what you're doing and refer back to the manual as needed. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any comments or anything, please leave them in the comments section below, or questions or suggestions for improvements or some way to do something different here. If you really like this video, please thumbs up. And if you really, really like the video, then please subscribe. And hopefully I'll have a few more of these coming in days, weeks, and months to come. Thank you very much for watching.